Hi guys. This is your friendly conservation biologist weirdo talking, Gabby. And I'm here to interview my good friend Jen, who does wildlife rehab and among other things in conservation. She's a very multi-talented person and is rocking an awesome ocelot shirt. Look at that.
It's actually a margay, but it's really hard to tell. Margay. Yeah, no, I'll give you a slide on that. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, thanks for coming to this interview, and I'm just gonna ask you to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about who you are and what you do and what you're into.
So my name is Jennifer. Like Gabby said, I'm a conservationist. I'm currently a volunteer wildlife rehabber, so I work with local wildlife in Northern California. So that's basically anything from hummingbirds, songbirds, opossums, skunks, raccoons, basically all sorts of things. And it's a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But I love working hands-on with wildlife. That's kind of how I got started in conservation, and that led me to become a zookeeper for a few years, and then I've done a lot of different things. I was a zookeeper, and then I got to go to Namibia for a little bit, and I got to help in the ecology department with some various research projects, and I did some stuff with giraffes. So all sorts of yes. And that's how we met, was in Namibia. So yeah, small world, two girls from the US. Yeah. It was just crazy how that ended up working out. And then we were in the trenches and we became really, really good friends. And that's kind of where this started. So yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell, in a very short, condensed version.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna jump in with actually kind of a big question. So we've discussed on the channel before about some of the barriers that exist in terms of going into conservation. So like basically in terms of entry into the field and in terms of staying in the field. Because as we all know, it's a very competitive career with a lot of things that sometimes make it hard to accomplish our goals. So what are the biggest challenges that you personally faced, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I think the big problem that a lot of people don't realize when they go into conservation, that it actually requires you to move actually quite a bit, depending on what you want to do and the direction you're going in. Like when I was a zookeeper, I actually did 2 internships before I got that job. And so I moved up to Oregon for like 6 months, and then came back to California, and then I moved to Texas for like 6-7 months, and then moved back, and then I got another job in Texas. So it ended up, so I ended up moving a lot, and it's a huge pain in the butt, to put it mildly. I mean, there's a lot of financial resources you have to pour into that, and just, the logistics of that. It requires a lot of sacrifice, and, you kind of have to be able to and willing to do that. And some people aren't necessarily able to do that. I'm lucky enough that my family has been really supportive of me going and doing conservation. I've always been obsessed with animals, so it was most likely inevitable, according to my parents. So, it's just tough. You have to be able to say, can I afford to do this? And if you can't, then that's kind of where you get between a rock and a hard place. And so it is challenging. And, and then again, I was overseas in Namibia. And so that was a huge, usage of time and money. And so, yeah, that definitely makes it very difficult.
So how would you, I guess, break down barriers to allow more diversity of people from different backgrounds in the conservation?
That's the hard part. Again, like Gabby said in the previous interview, it's so hard because there really isn't a lot of money going into conservation, and this ties into a lot with the zookeeping world as well, which is kind of a little subsection of conservation. But it's just not a lot of money goes into it, and what money does go into it is always pushed towards projects. And like if you're working directly with animals, it always goes towards the animals themselves. And so then people are kind of left off to the side that, sure, we'll pay you, but it's not going to be great. And then you may have to, do like 2 or 3 other jobs on the side in order to make ends meet, which is unfortunately the reality of it. And with a lot of conservation jobs. And that's kind of the dirty little secret that no one will say, unfortunately. But it's kind of the truth, unfortunately. Unless you have other financial means, it's really, really tough. And that needs to change. But I mean, that's why we need more people in conservation, and then, more people who have kind of the clout in order to get those changes across, which, unfortunately does take time.
Yeah, and opening up the dialogue, I think, is really important. I think it's like an unspoken thing in the field that we don't really talk about as practitioners, but making it less taboo to actually talk about it. Like, we need to earn money to live, to do science, and to conserve things, and to protect the planet. And I think we're just moving away from it being like a thing that nobody says anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's kind of a dirty secret, but sorry, it's out there. Yeah.
That's a good point. So let's talk about what's the coolest thing you've done. You mentioned being a zookeeper. Was it that, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely working hands-on with animals is, amazing. I've built so many relationships with amazing animals, but one of the things that really stuck out for me was actually my second zoo internship. I worked with the Atwater's prairie chicken at Fossil Rim Wildlife Center in Texas, and I was part of that program for the captive breeding. And we actually raised chicks that were slated to go and be released back in the wild, which is so cool because there's so many animals that are in zoos for conservation, but not a lot of those are in programs that will get them released into the wild. That's a whole other discussion that I won't get into as to why that doesn't happen as often as some people think it may. But I mean, the long and the short of it is that I was part of a really special program, and that was super neat. And at the end of the internship, I actually went to the refuge where they were being released and actually got to see wild birds. So I got the whole thing. I got to see the adult birds at the beginning of the breeding cycle, helped raise the chicks to, young adults, helped catch them so they could get their radio transmitters, and then drove down to actually see where they were in the wild, which was pretty freaking amazing. So yeah, that's definitely one of like the top things. And then also just going to Namibia and actually getting to meet the farmers that were experiencing human wildlife conflict with predators, talking to them, working with them. That was so informative into how I now view conservation, what we need to do in order to make a difference and, create positive changes. Because if we just barrel in there saying, oh, this is what you need to do without listening to them, then you're just hitting a giant brick wall. It's never going to happen. So that was really cool because that definitely made me a much better conservationist. Oh, dear.
You froze. You're back.
Oh, okay. Did you? Was there recording or?
It's still recording. We're good.
Okay. Crap.
You're good. No.
So yeah.
Yeah. So working with farmers is really rewarding. Being able to kind of understand conservation from the perspective of people on the ground. That's super awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the little chicken dance, right? Like the males would actually do the lecking dance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which was so cool. Again, tying back to that. But yeah, we'd drive into the management area where the birds were, and right at the beginning, you could hear the males booming and foot stomping, which is super, super cool. You should YouTube it. It's amazing. It is so cool. And it was even better in person. It was so neat. How many people could say that could go into work and hear these incredibly endangered birds doing the breeding behaviors? It was the coolest thing ever. Yeah, like easily like top 5 best experiences ever. Like it was just amazing.
That is so awesome. Wow. Yeah. Can you explain what like the actual booming mechanism is?
It's the air sacs that they have. The males kind of have these 2 huge like yellow air sacs. They look really funny, but it's they expand and contract, and that creates the booming sound, and then they stomp with their feet. It's like a little tap 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 tap. It's really, really cool. And yeah, it was the neatest thing. It was super, super cool.
Very, very cool. Thanks for that. So thanks for talking about all the really neat things that you've done hands-on with wildlife. I have another question for you. In terms of, say, for all the kids out there, all the people who are still trying to build their careers as early career practitioners, what are some of the skills that you think are particularly important? And again, this is just very general. I know there's many different different ways that you can become a conservationist, but what are some useful things for people to start looking at to pick up?
I would say if you're interested in anything remotely conservation related, try and see if there's a volunteer opportunity nearby that can kind of get you exposed to that. I mean, that's how I got started, honestly, was I happened to find a wildlife rehab center that was close to me when I was in high school. I started volunteering there, and oh, hello, I actually love working with wildlife and being hands-on with them, and I love conservation. That's how this whole thing got started for me. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, there's so many different ways to kind of try things out, and if you can, I mean, I definitely encourage people to do that. That's so important, to go out and just be willing to try new things. I mean, read as much as you can, whatever you can. I mean, that always helps. And just being open-minded is always such a huge thing, because I mean, like, for conservationists in general, we really need to remember that we need to be open-minded, that we need to look beyond ourselves and our own perspective, because that ends up limiting us in a lot of ways. And that also just creates a lot of conflict when you're trying to resolve all these situations, like with farmers and wildlife. I mean, it's just, you need to remember that. And just patience seems like a really easy thing, but patience with people, with animals, I mean, it's all interconnected. You have to be able to be patient. Yeah, it just goes for any kind of field you're going into, but patience, because you could be waiting in the field for goodness knows how long for, something to happen at like your field site or whatever, going through camera trap photos, which I've done a lot of, your endless photos of grass continually until you finally get like, something that's actually usable. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on about the darn grass, but just things like that. It's just, you have to just, open-mindedness, willing to try, all sorts of different things, and patience, really.
Awesome. And let me ask you one last thing. Is it worth it? Have you found it worth it, difficulty aside?
Yes, definitely. I don't know. It's just so funny because I honestly don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found that volunteering opportunity in high school. I honestly don't know what I would have done with my life. I mean, I could have gone into writing or whatever. I don't know. Honestly, don't know. So I was really lucky in that I found that really early. But I mean, yeah, it's just, that's just what it is.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. And we will be doing more. We're going to be looking for people to interview from all different aspects of the field. And so thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and kind of share your experiences. And yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch and hopefully have another interview with you again. Awesome.
See you guys later.
See you guys later. Bye.